Every morning, the countdown begins for the markets with meticulous research and analysis designed to help you capitalize on the trading day. Beaming live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. Middle of the week, Wednesday morning, we're coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Surabhi and Nigel. Guys, good morning.
Hi, morning.
Hi, good morning. This morning, it's all about reading in between the lines. Do we have the new Fed chief announcement or not? What do you guys think?
Anyone's guess, but it looks like directionally. I think he's given the hint.
I mean, he said it.
Yeah.
In almost as many words.
What did he say? I think we'll play the soundbite in a bit. I think Hassett was in the room and he said, well, I think the next Fed chair is in the room. So I think, what else, right? But, that's Donald Trump for you. But, as always, let's start from the beginning in terms of what you need to know as we begin this new session. 20 days to go for the end of the year. I just want to sort of look at that and kind of somehow just feels that you're sort of finishing something and you're going to start something new as you begin this new year. But, seasonally, by the way, end of the year is a strong period for global markets, for equities, etc. So far it's not been, at least here in India. When we started, actually a couple of months earlier, and the mood started at least, what people were writing and the sell side view, etc. All of that changed about a month and a half back, but it's yet to reflect on the screen in any significant way as we roll into the end of the year. U.S. equities, they rallied overnight, and I dare say led by an 8% rebound in Bitcoin. It's like the tail wagging the dog. Basically, it's got, there was an 8% crash in Bitcoin, there's an 8% rebound, equities sold off and equities have rebounded. That's the short story. S&P about a 0.25% higher, Nasdaq 0.6%. And by the way, Bitcoin prices briefly topped $92,000 once again. They'd come down to about $83,000 at the lows that we saw in the last 48 hours. Now, Trump has signaled publicly that his longtime advisor, Kevin Hassett, will be the next Federal Reserve chairman. The Fed Chair Powell, current Chair Powell, essentially steps away and his term ends in May of 2026. Kevin Hassett, the agenda and what Trump has, of course, publicly demanded of the current Fed and, of course, the new Fed under Kevin Hassett is going to be lower rates. A lot more focus on inflation and lesser on labor markets. And I think, one mandate over the other. Will Kevin Hassett be able to swing this for President Trump is the question. As we've seen over the last 2 months now, it's not been so easy. People have voted both ways, depending on what data they've got and not got because of the shutdown, etc. Now, the 10-year yield was unchanged, 4.08%. Oil prices came off about 1%, but not going anywhere, 62.5 on Brent oil prices. There wasn't too much data last night, but tonight we've got data coming in from, we got US ADP, that's a private payrolls number, and you've got the ISM services data, which will come in as well. And we got the manufacturing numbers, which came out earlier. I just want to mention 2 or 3 stocks because they've been such outsized movers. So Boeing was up 10% last night after it said deliveries of 737 and 787 jets will rise in 2026. These are large stocks, and they moved in a pretty significant way. Intel was up 9%. Intel said they're investing $200 million to put up an installation and testing center in Malaysia. It's like an OSAT facility in Malaysia. Tesla fell. Michael Burry, the famous a big short investor, essentially calling the shares ridiculously overvalued. We will talk more about that one. Here in India, it's been slow, it's been grinding, and it's, of course, been sideways to lower. That's been the price action. The primary market remains hot. There are 2 issues opening. Both are pretty interesting. Meesho is the one which I think will garner a fair bit of interest. It's a near 5,500 crore IPO. They're looking for a market cap of about 50,000 plus crores. It's a mix of OFS and primary offering. And the other one is Aequs, which is a company in the defense aerospace field. And that again is, I guess, going to be hotly bid for. It's a unique company, which we will talk more about a little later. Both companies, by the way, coming up in the next 2-3 hours here on CNBC TV 18 for a chat with the promoter and management. Now, I'll just tie in with the levels. The Nifty support stands at 25,924, which is the 20-day moving average. We, by the way, closed pretty, I think, 80, 90 points away from that level. And the Nifty Bank support is the 20-day moving average, which is 58,775. Again, with the fall yesterday, those gaps between the current last close and the 20-day has narrowed quite a bit. So that's the overall picture as we begin another session. GIFT Nifty, I think, is flattish, slightly lower, 22 points. Lower is the implied open. F&O stats, positioning, how's it looking? Nigel has walked across to the wall. Nigel, over to you.
Well, if you get that GIFT Nifty downtick of around 20-30 points odd and putting together yesterday's weekly expiry close, which normally you see a big move in the final hour of trade, I think the Nifty should bounce back. It should undo some of what we saw yesterday and add to that the negative close, negative opening that we're likely to see. So yesterday's downtick of around 140 points, and today if you get 20-50 points lower, maybe we see a bit of a recovery. And yesterday it clearly had expiry that played out in trade yesterday. But there were a couple of positives actually. One being that the Nifty was down, but after a while, the Nifty Next 50 actually outperformed. And you had the mid and the small cap indices as well that outperformed, though the Nifty was down 140 points. Portfolios haven't been feeling too good, and you like to see more of a broader market participation, though the Nifty is holding on to its ground. In terms of institutional flows, well, the FIs were sellers, the DIs were buyer, but net-net, the DIs were buyers to the tune of closer around 1,000 crores. Moving to the Nifty as well as the India VIX, that should come up for you on the screen because the Nifty ended lower, but the VIX as well was lower. That's normally a good sign from a bullish perspective. Not too much concern in the system, at least as of now. Well, in terms of what did the FIs do on index futures? They went ahead and they added some short positions, they unwound some long positionings, and now the total net short positioning is at around 1 lakh contracts from the FIs itself. And that was perfectly depicted, right? Because in yesterday's trade, you had some addition on the Nifty, so there were some mild shorts that got added out there. While on the Nifty Bank, there was some unwinding that we saw on this particular index. Moving to the options data then, the PCR, as we have mentioned, it's cooled off from the recent peak of around 1.5 because the call writers are getting very aggressive. 26,000 call, 26,200 call. Just take a look at the open interest addition on both those two strikes. While on the downside, this 26,000 put has seen a fair bit of open interest addition and the premium is around 90 rupees. So you plug in this 90 rupees and you look at the 20 DMA and you get that support zone. This 25,900 mark is the extremely important mark that you want to defend on the downside because that's where the 20 DMA is at. And in terms of a range, the upside range is at the recent high that we're looking at. The Nifty Bank, well, that's been pulling back for the last couple of days. I think it's pulled back closer around 800 points or thereabouts. But you want the 20 DMA to get defended, which is around 500 points away from current levels. And the Nifty Bank actually will have to lead the way. Another cue that we'll be tracking is the Indian rupee. That's been showing some sort of weakness. You want some stability on that front. Let it find its level and then stabilize around that mark. Because that makes things a little bit uncomfortable. On a macro perspective, you'll see our exports become more competitive, but you'll want some stability on the Indian rupee. That's something that traders will track as well.
Oh, absolutely. And we need to see if today is that 90 mark or if there's a bit of a cool off from these really heated levels for the dollar. By the way, do keep a track of the other development and the very important development in the AI space, the whole race for AI. Yesterday, Amazon, unveiled its latest chip. It's called the Trainium 3 chip, and it could take the fight straight to the heart of the incumbent, which is NVIDIA. They also put out a roadmap for the Trainium 4 chip. And these chips are promising AWS, Amazon Web Services, promises that they will have better compute capacity, they'll be cheaper. Very interesting developments over there. Yesterday, of course, most of these stocks were up and about, including Amazon and NVIDIA.